It's been nearly 24 hours since Donald J. Trump, we all know that middle initial, accepted the Republican presidential nomination out in Cleveland and laid his vision of America before us. Here it is.
The first task for our new administration will be to liberate our citizens from the crime and terrorism and lawlessness that threatens our communities.
So nobody again can ever say Hillary yells, because this guy yelled for an hour and a half last night. Less than 12 hours after that 75-minute scripted speech by Trump, it went off the rails. Early this morning at a goodbye reception, he attacked his former rival, apparently future rival, Ted Cruz, and began relitigating old grievances. Here's Trump being Trump.
I like Ted, he's fine. Again, I don't want his endorsement. If he gives it, I will not accept it. His father. I don't know his father. I met him once. I think he's a lovely guy. I think he's a lovely guy. All I did is point out the fact that on the cover of the National Enquirer, there was a picture of him and crazy Lee Harvey Oswald having breakfast.
Well, at one point, there was an audible gasp from the crowd when Donald Trump began to revisit allegations of attacks against Heidi Cruz, the wife of the other guy. Let's watch.
I didn't start anything with the wife. When I saw somebody tweeted a picture of Melania and a picture of Heidi, who I think, by the way, is a very nice woman and a very beautiful woman. I have to tell you, I think Heidi Cruz is a great person. I think it's the best thing he's got going in his kids, if you want to know the truth.
If you want to know the truth, that's a great phrase. Well, after a tumultuous week out in Cleveland where Republicans achieved a fragile détente, Trump did little to nettle their nerves or settle the nerves. He did a lot to nettle them. Joining me right now is MSNBC political analyst and conservative talk show host Hugh Hewitt. Hugh, aren't you in heaven? This never quits, does it? And Perry Bacon, who's coldly, let's see, but non-political in his thinking and analysis. He's a political reporter right here with me. Hugh, I've got to go to you because this is, to me, once again, the Sinatra aspect of Trump. A lot of talent there, lots of brains, but this willingness at any street corner, in any bar, in any saloon, if you want to fight, he'll fight. He wants to fight with Ted Cruz.
No, Chris.
No. I missed it. I'm sure I missed it. Go ahead. What's the inside conservative thing here? I don't get it.
This is what this is. After every major sporting event in America, you have the post-game press conference. And when LeBron and Kyrie come out after shattering the Warriors' dreams and having the greatest comeback, they don't talk about next season. They talk about how they won. So the Republicans have this crazy convention. Katie Tur said it a little bit rocky. It was an off-road race. It was like the Baja 500 of conventions. And so Donald Trump goes out to Hopkins Airport with Mike Pence and goes back over and lays out his narrative and talks about everything. He also introduces Mike Pence again. And by the way, Mike Pence helps him, whereas Tim Kaine is just an anchor around Hillary's neck. You saw last night, Donald Trump made a play for Bernie voters. If Tim Kaine is that press release that you get in a few minutes, Bernie voters are going to come to Donald Trump, or maybe they'll go over to Jill Stein. They ain't going to like this. So anyway, all Donald Trump did today was the post-game press conference.
And he had to put the shiv in again on Ted Cruz's father, maybe having something to do with killing Jack Kennedy. He had to throw that in.
He had to talk about why Ted Cruz hit him hard. He had to go back over it, just like LeBron talking about the block in Game 7, Chris. It's just a replay of a given order, going back over the highlights reel and going forward.
Let me just suggest something for you. I think he was piling on, because not only did he say there was a picture in the National Enquirer, which is dubious to begin with, and not a good credit. Nobody ever credits that when they write a news article, according to the one. He said that they had breakfast together. Now, the picture was of two people walking, one who was Lee Harvey Oswald, another guy could have been a Hispanic guy. No reason to believe it was Ted Cruz's father at all. But somehow he now has them settled down to breakfast together. There is no such picture. What is Trump up to? He's putting icing on the cake here.
That clip was amazing.
They're having breakfast together.
That clip was amazing to watch Mike Pence kind of looking like, what is going on? And then finally Trump praises Heidi Cruz, and Mike Pence leads the applause. He's relieved that something normal has been said finally. It just goes to the point that we keep thinking Trump gave a very traditional speech on Thursday in terms of his tone. The message was different than Mitt Romney would have given. But then Friday, he's back to the normal kind of, I don't like Ted Cruz. He was right. He definitely wanted to sort of, he's been commentating the campaign throughout. That's one thing Trump does. He kind of gives his analysis of what's going on like he's in the basketball game. And yes, he did that because he's sort of annoyed. Ted Cruz disrespected him. He's annoyed by it.
Well, there's a new thing here, Hugh. It's the, you know those Santa Claus grandfather's mask used to always be looking at you. You're walking down the street and that mask is meant to always be looking at anybody that looks back at it. Trump has this new feature. He says one thing which gets his visceral support behind him, and then he says something else on the other side to sort of balance out, like, I really think Heidi Cruz is beautiful, blah, 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 after having posed her against his attractive, what do you call it, model, supermodel wife. It just seems to me he's trying to do now, he covers everything over now. He's super pro-Israeli now, super anti-neocon on wars. He's got it, he works both sides of the street in the same moment. How is he going to get away with that? Is that just politics?
Chris, I think that's called winning elections. He mentions the LGBTQ community, and then he says
that
in
was
the biggest
politically
applause
correct as
line.
heck. What made him leap to the latest state-of-the-art phraseology? What was that about? Putting in Q.
It was setting up the biggest applause line of the night, which is I will protect the Supreme Court, which I've now embedded in the opening music of every hour of my radio show, because that really rallies the Republican base. So you're absolutely right. He is reaching out for new voters, LGBTQ. Okay. He's talking to Pennsylvania, but he's also assuring people.
State of the art. You guys on the right. First of all, I got a great Q question for Donald Trump. What did you mean by Q? Do you think he knows?
Queer. He meant queer. Sure he did.
Is that what he meant? Not questioning? Not questioning.
I'm sure he knows. No, he's a Manhattan guy. He knows what LGBTQ means. Come on.
I'm not sure if it's politically correct what you just said, but it might well be. But it just seemed odd from a guy who's always. But he propounds the argument we should never be politically correct, and there he is correcting his text last night and adding Q at the end. I want to ask Perry, who was really objective about this. What did you make of that when you saw this? Chuck was sitting next to me, and he goes, Chuck Todd, he goes, wait a minute, that's different than the first draft. Somebody's checking stuff out here and cleaning it up.
Well, Monday that did not happen, obviously. But I do think that it seems like on Thursday he is trying to broaden his coalition. That's one thing you can tell he's doing. He wants to give the law and order message, but he knows
he doesn't want to be anti-gay.
He doesn't want to be anti-gay. He's from New York. The Republican Party's different now. Peter Thiel gave that speech last night.
He was great.
And that was an unusual speech for a Republican nomination. I do think Trump wants to broaden the coalition and run more as less of the social values Republican. I think that is smart.
Okay, let me ask you now that I've got you in a fighting mode. What did you make of Paul Manafort, the campaign manager, in effect right now, saying when I asked him why should a woman vote for Trump after Trump has been so tough on Hillary, the first woman candidate for president, who really has a chance to be president, and he said because they have to worry about their husband's ability to pay the family bills. Did you think that was a little bit archaic, since the fact that the statistics given at the Republican convention, something like half the households in this country, maybe more, are headed by women breadwinners, in fact, sole breadwinners, to say that a woman should worry about her husband's ability to pay the bills. Did you think that was a little odd?
Yeah, I'd rather have Ivanka talking about those issues. I'd rather have Ivanka answering all your questions on those issues, Chris, because she's a Democrat. Because she was very skilled. Paul Manafort may not be the best person to answer those questions.
How do you think the campaign looks coming out of Cleveland, by the way, now that we have you? Because I think Hillary thinks, I've never seen, well, Hillary gets effusive. She's like me, a lot of people, and you even, you're rather staid, but you can tell a person's mood by looking at them. You can do it with Perry, I know that. You can tell how people feel. And Hillary looks like she's walking on air. She's so happy that this week turned out so bad.
Rome always was happy till the Vandals arrived, Chris. Rome always thought they were in charge until the Germans came over the Rhine. And I'm telling you right now that if they named Tim Kaine, the happiest person in America is Donald Trump. The second happiest is Mike Pence. That's a Milli Vanilli ticket. That's the most boring ticket, backed up by a complete failure as Secretary of State and the server. We will be running on that speech all year long.
Throw into the kitchen sink and done. Is this what you guys do? If given a minute on television, throw out the list. The server.
Oh, yes.
You really think the server's going to have anything to do with this campaign?
Let me address
that part does matter. That part, the regime change stuff.
Let me address the